Hello, my name is Lewis and welcome to Gathering the Magic. Today we're looking at a $69 budget Ognis the Dragon's Lash deck tech. From SNC, this Viashino warrior with haste says whenever a creature you control with haste attacks, create a treasure token. This deck is all about adding those cards to give everyone haste, going mana positive with all of that treasure and overwhelming our opponents with massive creatures for the win. Now, let's get straight into the deck tech. As always, we're starting off this budget brew hot with all of that ramp. First one up is Rampant Growth to search your library for a basic land, putting it onto the battlefield tapped, and Cultivate to search your library for 2 basic lands, putting one in your hand and the other onto the field tapped. There's Dark Ritual to add 3 Swamp to your mana pool, and Seething Song to add 5 Mountain to your mana pool. We have Gruul and Rakdos Signet that we can both pay 1, tap and add those Gruul or Rakdos colours. Finishing the trip to Signet City, we have Golgari to again pay and tap to add Golgari mana, and Curse Mirror to add a mountain to our mana pool. It can also ETB and become a copy of any creature on the field until end of turn, but with haste. Ognis likes this. And finally, we have Soul Ring, because Soul Ring. Before we get into that hasty action, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all things MTG. Subscribing is completely free to do, and it helps our channel grow and grow. You can also help support the channel by becoming a prickly pal today with our brand new channel membership. Now, let's continue the budget brew by looking at all of those creatures that love enabling that haste. First up is Garner the Bloodflame to give your other creatures haste. You can also flash in Garner, and when it ETBs, you return all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn. Always a great board wipe responder. And Cyclops of Eternal Fury to give your creatures you control haste. We have Mad Rush Cyclops to do exactly the same, and Tuk Tuk Rubblefort, the wall with Defender Reach, and once more gives creatures you control haste. There's Goro Goro, Disciple of Ryusi, to pay a red to give creatures you control haste until end of turn, and Ulvenwald Oddity that transforms into Ulvenwald Behemoth to give your other creatures you control +1/+1, trample and haste. We've added Indestructible God Perforos to give other creatures you control haste, and Budget Breaker Urabrask the Hidden to not only give creatures you control haste, but also creatures your opponents control ETB tapped. Having all of these ways to give our creatures haste are key, so we not only have more options if Ognis is destroyed, but it also makes Ognis less of a target as there will still be plenty of haste enablers on the board. There's Barbarian class that when it gets to level 3 gives all of our creatures haste, and Fires of Yavimaya to give our creatures haste. We have Rhythm of the Wild to make our creature spells uncounterable and they enter with Riot, and Samut Tyrant Smasher for that final option to give all of our creatures haste. Moving on to hasty creatures, there's Gingerbrute that we can also make unblockable, and Loyal Apprentice that at the beginning of combat, if we control our commander, we create a 1/1 Thopter with flying and haste until end of turn. We have Beastcaller Savant that we can also use as a mana dork for creature spells, and Hellrider that when attacks, it pings defending player for 1. For the final 4, there's Dreadhorde Butcher that gets a +1/+1 counter whenever it deals damage to a player or planeswalker, and when it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. And Grand Warlord Radar that says whenever one or more creatures attack, add that much mana in any combination of forest or mountain. Until end of turn, you don't lose mana as steps and phases end. We've got Goblin Assault that at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 Goblin with haste. And Flame Shadow Conjuring that says whenever a non-token creature ETBs under your control, you may pay a red. If you do, put a token on the field that's a copy of that creature. That creature gains haste, exiling it at the beginning of the next end step. Now, we're moving on to all of that treasure. First up is Academy Manufactor that says if you would create a clue, food or treasure token, instead create one of each. And Zorn that says if you would create one or more treasure tokens, you create those plus an additional treasure token. We've got Seize the Spoils that we have to discard a card to cast, but we get to draw 2 cards and create a treasure token, and Pirate's Pillage to do exactly the same, but this time we create 2 treasure tokens. There's Nadir's Nightblade that says when a token you control leaves the field, each opponent loses a life and gains a life, and Disciple of the Vault that says when an artifact is put into a graveyard from play, target opponent loses 1 life. Both these cards are perfect for Ognis. We'll have so many treasures leaving play, we'll be draining our opponents for plenty. There's Reckless Fireweaver that says when an artifact ETBs under your control, deal 1 damage to each opponent, and Kalain Reclusive Painter that ETBs creating you a treasure token with other creatures you control ETBing with a +1/+1 counter for each mana a treasure token was spent to cast them. Finally, there's Professional Jawbreaker that says when one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token, and Magda Brazen Outlaw that you can sacrifice 5 treasures and you can search your library for an artifact or dragon card, putting it onto the field. And we may have a dragon or two coming up. So we've looked at our haste army and treasure makers, let's look at that end game army. First up is End Raise Forerunners with Vigilance, Trample, Haste, and when it ETBs, other creatures you control get +2/+2, Vigilance and Trample until end of turn. And Decimator of the Provinces with Trample, Haste, and when you cast, creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Trample until end of turn. There's Big Eldrazi in Desolation Twin, that when you cast you create a 10/10 Eldrazi token, and Eldrazi Devastator, a massive 8/9 with Trample. We have Artisan of Kozilek with some creature recursion and Annihilator 2, and Pathrazer of Ulamog with Annihilator 3 and can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. Remember, these big endgame creatures don't need haste, as we've not only got Ognis, but plenty of ways to give those creatures haste. There's Broodmate Dragon, a flyer that ETBs and creates you a 4/4 dragon token with flying, and Primeval Protector that costs 1 less to cast for each creature your opponents control, and ETBs putting a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. Finally, there's Channel Horde Worm with Trample, and when it deals damage to an opponent, you get some tasty Graveyard Recursion, and Titanoth Rex, a huge 11/11 with Trample. We're going to be so mana rich with that ramp and treasure that casting these will become a very easy possibility, and all of that haste will help us plough through our opponents for the win. Before finishing up with all of those lands, we're looking at the best of the rest in this budget brew. First on up we have Sign in Blood to have target player draw 2 cards and lose 2 life, and Painful Truths to draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of colours of mana spent to cast Painful Truths. We have Faithless Looting to draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards with that flashback option, and Night's Whisper to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. There's Reprocess to sack any number of artifacts, creatures and or lands, drawing a card for each permanent sacrifice this way, and Greed to pay 2 life and add a swamp to draw a card. We have huge one-sided board wipe with In Garruk's Wake to destroy all creatures you don't control and all planeswalkers you don't control. And Izuri's Predation that says for each creature your opponents control, create a 4/4 beast creature token. Each of those beasts fights a different one of those creatures. Onto removal we have Putrefy to destroy target artifact or creature, and Infernal Grasp to destroy target creature, losing 2 life. We've got Terminate to destroy target creature, and Bedevil to destroy target artifact, creature or planeswalker. Finally, there's Yuri, Master of the Review. This is when you sack target permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Yuri. When Yuri dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. This could get wild with the amount of treasures we'll be sacrificing. And Mob Rule to gain control of either all creatures with power 4 or greater, or power 3 or less, untapping those creatures and giving them haste. Now we're finishing up this budget brew with all of those lands, and starting off as always with the basics, of which in this deck we're adding 12 mountain, 9 forest and 9 swamp, as this deck does lean slightly heavier into that red colour. We have Commander Classics and Command Tower to add 1 mana of any colour in your commander's colour identity, and Exotic Orchard to add 1 mana of a colour that an opponent controls could produce. We have Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse that can both be sacrificed to search our library for a basic land, putting it onto the field tapped. Lastly, there's Cinderglade, the ETB is tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands, and Savage Lands to add any of those Ognis colours. Ognis is a really cool commander option from Streets of New Capenna, and one of the strongest of the new releases in my opinion. This is one commander I cannot wait to create or face against in my commander circle. There we have it, that is the Ognis $69 budget deck tech. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all things MTG. Check out our link tree in the description below for all of our social media and affiliate links. For now though, I'm all tapped out, so I'll see you in the next video.